In order to detect events of interest, detection zones and lines must be defined first. Detection zones define an area of interest, whereas detection lines define a line instead of a region. To create a zone, double-click on the tracking display window. The new zone will appear in the display. You can also do this by right-clicking on the tracking display and selecting Zone Line and then selecting Create Zone. If you click back on the zone, every time you create a zone, default information about that zone is displayed in the Properties Inspector. For example, you can see the zone name, color, and type, which is in this case a detection zone. You can also see the different rules that can be applied to the zone. Let's give this zone a name. Let's call it Blue Zone. Let's change the color to blue. Notice that you can also move the zone around the page without any restrictions. You can change the size and the shape of the zone by grabbing the nodes and dragging them across the page like so. It is also possible to create a zone with any shape by adding additional nodes. To add a node, double-click on the edge of the zone like so. Notice that you can also do this by right-clicking on the edge of the zone, select Node, and insert node. To remove nodes, right-click on the node. Notice how the node turns grey. Select Node and remove Node. To remove the blue zone, right-click anywhere on it, select Zone, and remove Zone. To create a detection line, right-click on the tracking display window and select Zones Lines and select Create Line. Let's give this line a name. Let's call it Red Line. You can move the line around the page without any restrictions. You can change the size of the line by grabbing the nodes and stretching them across the page like so. It is possible to create detection lines with any shape by adding additional nodes. You can add further nodes by double-clicking anywhere on the line. To remove the line, right-click on the line and select Line, remove Line. Video Analytics supports multiple overlapping zones and lines, as shown in this example. You can click on them to view their properties or hover over them to highlight them. You can drag them over other zones and overlap them like so. You can save the configuration by right-clicking on the tracking display, select File, select Save to File, let's call it Test, and then click Save. The file is saved as an XML document. Let's remove all zones and lines by right-clicking on the tracking display, select Zone Line, and remove all zones and lines. Then to retrieve the saved file, right-click on the tracking display, select Load from File, locate the test file, open it, and there you have it. In some situations, especially where the scene is busy, objects tracked in some areas can interfere with detection zones in other areas. On a windy day, moving foliage can generate false alarms that in some situations could be tracked through a detection zone. In order to minimize such issues, it is possible to configure non-detection zones where nothing is detected or tracked. The live video shows a small car park in the UK with moving foliage on 2 trees. Here are 2 detection zones already set up on the screen and ready to be masked. By clicking on the blue zone and selecting None Detection, you get a crosshatched looking pattern. After clicking Apply, nothing will be tracked in that area. Let's do the same with the green zone and click Apply. Although the trees have not moved much, it is always a good idea to mask out areas that you don't want the object tracker to track.